What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. Haven't made a video in a couple weeks, but been trying to let the new format sink in, do some testing and whatnot. Before I actually go into the discussion, I just like to show some of the stuff that I got from my Cards for Black Players video. And a lot of you guys have just been way too kind. I'm sorry about the glare, but I just felt like deserve a little recognition for some of these people. Maddie's Daddy, 12. He's a good guy. He has a good YouTube channel. He actually sent me this Iron Man Colossal Fighter. I told him I've got a 4-year-old nephew who's like a huge Iron Man fan. So when I show him that, he's going to freak out. He's going to get a kick out of it. Forbidden Jackal hooked me up with a lot of good cards. Got some signed Dark Hole, signed Reborn, cards that I definitely am going to need. Dead Rampage hooked me up with like a lot of stuff. Rhoda, Neosis. Most importantly, though, he gave me a Mirror Force. So thanks, brother. I really appreciate that. These common Mirror Forces are still kind of sought after. So, that's definitely nice. Rob Chen, aka RC Null 22, was kind enough to hook me up with a set of DD Crow, a couple of Book of Moons. So definitely going to need Crow. Always good card for the side deck. Hyper Kaiser hooked me up with a lot of good stuff. He got a Gores, Monster Reborn, a Stratos. I think there's a Starlight Road in there too. He signed him HDK, which is pretty cool. Leaf Gaines hooked me up with a lot of scrap cards. I don't play scraps, but the thought is always nice, so I do appreciate that. Team Tayu sent me a set of Mask of Restricts, and it's pretty cool because it's 3 members on the team, and each one of them signed their names, so that's pretty awesome too. Karakuri actually hooked me up with DD Warrior Lady, Neos's Comet, or Rare Starlight Road, and actually pretty cool. You guys probably can't read it, but he actually wrote, not just in addition to signing, but he actually wrote me like almost like a little story across all the cards saying, best of luck, I hope you do good, and all this other stuff. So it's really nice. I've actually did read that, man, so thanks. What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. Going to talk a little bit about the new format. I have done some testing and, just going to give some of my views and opinions on it. First off, the initial best deck, I believe, right now is Gravekeepers, at least for the short time being. Gravekeepers losing Royal Tribute to losing 1 Royal Tribute doesn't really hurt the deck at all. They still have 3 dualities, so it's not like they can't get to it. If they turn 1 Royal Tribute a deck like Plants or Sabers, it could be lights out, basically. So there's always that, and the fact that Necro Valley really screws up with a lot of the decks, especially since Plants is now becoming Chaos based, which hurts the deck even more because you can't summon Chaos when you have Necro Valley on the field. But anyways, they still have walls because, Gravekeeper Spy, we have Necro Valley on the field, like even a Star Elves can't run over it. And what people don't realize about Gravekeepers is, let's say you have like a Descendant on the field, people look at it and they're not really scared because it's just a little 2000 attacker, but it's very difficult to get their monsters off the field. And people don't realize it only takes 4 of those 2,000 attacks to lose the game. So Gravekeepers do an excellent job of controlling the field. And the fact that they swapped out a Solemn Warning for an Oppression, I think makes them even more deadly because now it's not like before Gravekeepers could just kind of shut you down for a turn. Now they can take a deck like Samurais or Plants and flip over their Oppression versus the old Solemn Warning and basically just lock you out for like 3 or 4 turns. Usually it's game. 6 Samurai, and I guess we should kind of include X-Sabers because they're basically the same deck. The reason why people stopped playing Sabers last format, or when 6 Samurai came onto the scene, why Sabers were basically invisible, is because Samurai were basically it was like Sabers, just faster. It's like, why sit there and wait for your Dark Soul to die to get your combo pieces when you can just search them straight from the deck? Now, that Gateway is at 1. Basically, I think they're on kind of an even playing field. It's kind of like when Sabers had Cat and they were just bananas fast. But I say this because the 2 decks are very similar. They both use their theme synchro to do a lot of the work, although they do it in different ways. Sheen shuts you down. Hunley basically just like comes to the field and just blows everything up. So it's the same concept of their synchro is locking down magic and traps. Gotham's E-Call and Double-Edged Sword Technique are pretty much like the same card. Both of these decks have a really hard time getting back into duels. I don't know if you've ever played against Samurai post March 1st, but if you've ever got like really jumped up on on Samurais, like maybe you Kai'd one of their monsters and MST their gateway in the same turn, they're probably gonna lose because they're not a good top decking deck, much like X Sabers. I think both of these decks will be floating around tier 1. I think they'll both be tier 1. It's actually bananas. I think Samurai are a very good deck. I think they do have some problem matchups. I think the plant matchup isn't nearly as good as it was last format because plants have to set a lot of things, and before Samurai could just basically outpace them, but now it takes a little more setup time. Plants, and I guess I should have put a Chaos Sorcerer somewhere in here. This is a really good deck. I think it has a lot of versatility because the thing is, now you're really not so concerned about like trying to spam tokens. That's why you see players trying to get away from, well, Titanial was not really being used before, but you'll see less Titanial and less, tribute summoning for Caius, and you'll see more stuff like card trooper plays and them trying to make one big synchro and kind of sit on it, or them trying to use like Chaos Sorcerer. And again, Jeff Jones is tossed in, return from a different dimension. And you'll see more tech like that because the deck isn't about token spam anymore. It's more or less just using your little floaters and then, getting double bonus effects, like you veil your opponent's monster and, you 1-for-1 on that because they might have to pitch a card for Baronic. And then you can remove Veiler and summon Chaos Sorcerer and +1. So I think plants will hang around. I think their matchup versus X Sabers isn't nearly as bad as what people make it out to be, especially if they play defense. If they don't just play limit reverse and like call it a haunted. I think their match against Gravekeepers is, I think that's the trouble one. Like if you don't get a Raikou on Necro Valley ASAP, you'll probably lose. This is a deck I think is very underrated. I really like it. You guys know how I feel about heroes. These are my boys right here. I think that versions that try and use like Fusion Gate and all that, I don't really see that being as consistent as a pure like anti-meta, or people call Gemini stun build, because when you're playing a Gemini stun build and you've got Thunder Kings in there and you've got all these anti-meta cards and oppression and all that, you're still playing that deck that won a YCS, maybe a little watered down because of the ban list. You're still playing that deck that won a YCS, but now you have the ability to summon a boss monster, once every couple of turns or whatever. You can play an Ab-Zero, and if your monsters like Stratos and Neos are already giving your opponents problems, then something like The Shining or Ab-Zero are just going to give them even more problems, you know what I mean? I think this deck will still really be good. As long as you can get the ball rolling, especially with like dualities and stuff, and you can draw onto your combo pieces, I think this is a really, really underrated deck. And here's the deck I've actually been playing, Karakuri, and I'll probably get some boos. People will say, well, why aren't you playing heroes? I'll explain that situation in my next video, why I'm not playing heroes while I'm playing Karakuri right now. Man, I'm playing Karakuri plant Machinas right now. No psychic stuff because the psychic stuff is actually less consistent than not running it. Even when you run the psychics, the plants do all the work anyway as far as tuning goes. But yo, this deck is fun as hell. It's like, especially if you are running the psychics, you know what it really reminds me of? It reminds me of DDT. I don't mean in the sense of how DDT ran and how its win condition, but I mean by when you looked at DDT on paper, it was like the most random bunch of cards. Like you've got Elemental Hill Stratos, and then you've got Magical Stone Excavation, and then you've got Reasoning. It's like, how the hell do these cards work in conjunction? And this kind of feels the same way. It's like you've got Dandelion and Machina Fortress, and somehow between those two, you're going to summon a freaking Karakuri Burrito, which it's a weird deck. It's fun as hell. It is consistent. People looked at Jeff Jones' deck. I think a lot of people tested it and they were like, ew, it's bad. It's not actually bad. You just have to know how to play it. His version is not the be-all, end-all, and he even said that, Just mess around with it. You'll find consistency. Some cards that I think are going to be just dynamite this format. First off, Trap Sun. Austin Coleman made a whole video about it, and, deservedly so. Trap Sun is really big right now, especially the fact that Book went to 1. It's harder to stop synchros right now, probably as hard as it's ever been since probably they first came out. So that actually gives a huge boost to decks like Karakuri, to decks like Plants, because you can flip over a Trap Stun, and a lot of times your opponent really won't have anything. From what I've seen, enemy controller hasn't really been seeing that much play. So Book of Moon is quite simply the only quick play people seem to want to play this format, or in the game period. Second, Royal Oppression. This card is bananas right now. One of the reasons why I think Oppression didn't see a ton of play last format was because Solemn Warning just flat out outclassed it. Because Oppression didn't stop normals and you couldn't use it in the damage step. Warning was just a little bit quicker and, a way more one-sided. But in an age where there aren't that many Book of Moons, it's so easy to just throw these two in any pretty much deck. Gladiator Bees, X Sabers, and Karakuri. I use that in my Karakuri. I use both of these cards. It's so easy to just, flip Trap Stun, go nuts on your opponent. Oh, wait, they want to counter you? Oppression that shit. So, that's my discussion. What I really want to know is, what are you guys playing right now? You've got YCS Charlotte coming up. You've got Anaheim on the West Coast coming up. And, just a whole mess of regionals. So, what are you guys playing? Do you think that the Six Samurais are still good? Are you still running Blackwings? Are you testing Lightsworn? What are you guys running?